All right, everybody, we are back and we are looking once again at inside linebackers. Earlier today, we took a look at six guys that are either guaranteed, probable, possible, or have some slim chance of going in the top 50 in the draft. They could go first round, top half of the second round. Some of them very unlikely, but it's possible with all those guys. So today we're going to take a look at guys that they're not going to go that high. Or excuse me, well, when I say today, I mean now in this video. We're going to be looking at guys, they're not going to go top 50, but they're probably, possibly, or at the very least, they have a chance to go top 100. They go before day 3. So we got 6 more guys, and hey, I got no issues. In fact, I would actually encourage this team to look in places like day 2 and day 3 for inside linebacker guys, because there are a lot of really good guys in this draft. First of all, there's not a dire need at the position for this team right now, second of all. And I feel like typically you see good players come out in later or middle portions of the draft every year and make positive contributions as inside linebackers, third of all. So I absolutely don't need to see this team use one of their first 3 picks on an inside linebacker. I would be very happy to use our third round pick on one, or maybe even a day 3 pick on one. Those guys, they can surprise you. It seems like every year somebody uses a top, excuse me, not a top, but like a bottom, how would you put that? A pick below the 200, or I guess I'll say 150, and they get an inside linebacker who ends up making positive contributions. So let's take a look at some of these more mid-level guys. I'll call it like tier 3 and tier 4. First, we have Jojo Doman, and he's a Nebraska guy. Some places actually think he's more of a safety, which is interesting. And given how he plays, it does kind of make sense. I think he's kind of a tweener, but I do have him listed as a linebacker. And I'm really interested because his skill set is different. 6'1", 228 pounds, 4.6, 240, 3 productive seasons, 52 tackles, 10 for loss, 2.5 sacks, 5 pass deflections. 2020, 58, 6.5 tackles for loss, 5 pass deflections. And then this most recent year's best one, 71 tackles, 9 for loss, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. Basically, this guy is a bit of a coverage demon. This guy can cover like crazy, which is why some places think he's actually going to end up playing safety. And as you can see, he's ranked pretty well on some big boards. They have him in or around the top 100, but a few didn't have him ranked at all. So the pros with JoJo, like I said, great in coverage. He played outside the box frequently. He was somebody who would actually sometimes line up outside the hashes. He's a great fit for the modern NFL, where you're seeing teams pass the ball more than ever, using the entire field more than ever, not just running the ball up the gut all the time. So Jojo Doman is a guy who, against certain teams, is not really going to have value. If you're playing a team that runs the ball a ton and does a lot of power O stuff, like if Jojo Doman was playing against the Seahawks, he would be kind of useless. But if he's playing against a team like the Rams, and I'll throw the Cardinals in there as well a little bit because they run the spread, or, well, air raid / spread, then I think he could be really, really good. He's somebody who is tailor-made to play in the modern NFL. And despite that, which makes him kind of sound like a finesse player, he's not. He has a tough mentality, and he's sound in run defense. He made a lot of plays in the backfield in his college career, despite being more of a coverage player. The issues with JoJo, like I said, most of his value is against pass-happy teams, which is good, but it also means when you play certain teams that like to run the ball up the gut a lot, he's not going to give you much. He did get hurt a few times at Nebraska, miss some time, miss some games. He is a little bit small, which works in his favor, but there are certainly situations where it will work against him. And I believe he's going to be 25 before he plays any NFL games, so a little bit old. Okay, next up we have a third Georgia linebacker. Georgia might have 3 guys go in the top 100 from their linebacker core alone, which is crazy. And then, by the way, you also have Travon Walker, so that tells you what you need to know about that Georgia D. 6'2", 230 pounds, 4.4740. He really only had 1 year of production at Georgia because he had to wait his turn. 67 tackles, 7.5 for loss, 5.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. So playmaker, but not a massively robust resume. And the big boards, most of them have him in the top 100, near the bottom end of the top 100. Walter Football thinks he might go undrafted. I think Walter Football just kind of missed the boat here. I seriously doubt there's any credibility to this at this point. Or Walter Football just really doesn't like most inside linebackers. He is a good athlete for sure. He is somebody whose athleticism is a lot better than his production in his college career. He's a destructive blitzer, 5.5 sacks the most recent year, doesn't lie. He's a physical and aggressive running back chaser. He's somebody who can shed through blockers pretty well. He's somebody who really chases players down from behind all the time. He can set the edge on the run. He holds up effectively. He's got good linebacker instincts in terms of sniffing out plays and knowing where to go. And at the very worst, you are getting a guy who should be a demon on special teams. The issues with Channing Tindall are that he was never a full-time player at Georgia. As you can see, the 1 year he played a lot, he didn't even have 70 tackles. So you're talking about what? About less than 5 a game. So never really a every down player there. He doesn't have a lot of length and he doesn't have a lot of bend, which does inhibit him a little bit in terms of shedding blockers and rushing the passer in some areas. And overall, he's just going to need some development. He's going to need some time in the oven in order to become the great player that his potential draft position would indicate he should be. Okay, moving right along here. Brian Asamoah is next. Not from Georgia, finally. Oklahoma. 6 feet flat, so a little bit short. 226 pounds, 4.5640. So undersized and fast, one of those linebackers, which is not exactly what you're looking for in a 3-4 most of the time. Only really 2 years of stats. 2020, 66 tackles, 5.5 for loss, 2 sacks, 4 pass deflections, a pick, a forced fumble. 2021, 80 tackles, 3.5 for loss, 1 sack. Decent stat line, but nothing that blows you away. Most of the big boards have him in the third round. ESPN has him in the early 4th. PFF loves him. They have him in the early 2nd. Walter Football doesn't really like him. They have him in day 3. So Brian Asamoah, a little bit all over the place here. What can we say about him? He's a great athlete, right? He's got a phenomenal athletic ability, changes direction really well. He covers ground great, sideline to sideline guy, chases people down everywhere. He's a very savvy player in terms of finding the ball carrier on the run. He's somebody who knows how to pick through his run fit, somebody who understands where he needs to be in order to stop the play. Great tackler, doesn't miss very many tackles at all. He shows the ability to become a playmaker at some point, somebody who's going to rack up bigger numbers and tackles for loss. He moves well in coverage. So he's giving you a few different pretty appealing things as a prospect. The thing with Asamoah is a lot of things with him are just kind of read and react. He reads the play and then he just goes. He may struggle in a more complex defense. He is a 4-3 fit. He's small. He's not very strong. And sometimes he's a little overly aggressive. So this is not a guy you would traditionally look at for a 3-4 defense. However, we don't know the ins and outs of how we're looking at our defense. We don't know exactly how much we're even going to be running a pure 3-4. When they say hybrid, we don't know what they mean, so who knows? Okay, next up is a really fun one. One of my favorite players in this draft, Troy Anderson from Montana State. This guy has size and speed for days. 6'3", 242 pounds, 4.4240. So you're getting a 240-pound guy who can run a 4.42. Very rare you find that. Now, look, the dude played at Montana State. I had to dig a little bit to find his stats, and I could only find 1 year of stats, but they were pretty good. 2021, almost 150 tackles, 14 for loss, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. That's a pretty decent thing to point to on your resume as a linebacker, right? And by the way, we'll get into this in a second, but he also has some two-way value. Don't know if that'll ever matter, but maybe. If you look at the big boards, they all have him in the third round, except for PFF that has him in the late second, and CBS has him in the early fourth. So I think you are looking at a third round pick on Troy Anderson, and hopefully it stays that way. He did have a good combine. He could easily creep on up. But a lot of stuff to like here. He's extremely versatile, and by that I mean he can play quarterback or running back. He can Taysom Hill this. He can be a Taysom Hill guy, potentially. I'm not even kidding. He did that in college. He's got size, speed, and athletic ability that you're not going to find in very many players. He covers ground incredibly well. He's excellent in coverage, and he should be a demon on special teams. So there's a lot to really like with Troy Anderson. I would really like to bring him in the third round if at all possible. That's something that appeals to me much more than spending the first round pick on Devin Lloyd, even though Devin Lloyd's clearly a better player. Now, that being said, Troy Anderson hasn't been playing a ton of linebacker in his career. Straight up, most of the appeal of Troy Anderson is his tape, is what he does at the combine, is what he does in his workouts. It's not what he actually produced on a football field. So you are hoping that what you saw from Troy Anderson on the field, on the field at Indianapolis translates to the actual football field. He does get knocked out of plays by blockers, which does make him a little bit of a questionable 3-4 fit. I think he can overcome it because he's got some strength and he's got the size, but as of right now, it's not ideal for a 3-4. And overall, he's just going to need experience as a linebacker. I mean, this is a guy who really was more of a quarterback for Montana State than he was a linebacker. It's just that linebacker is the position that he played most recently and did have his biggest season there. Okay, so now we're going to go on to Leo Chanel of Wisconsin. And this guy might be near the top of the list in terms of practicality. Because as much as this guy may not be quite as good a prospect as a lot of the guys we just looked at, might be a better fit. Let's break it down a little bit. So Wisconsin Badger, 6'3", 250 pounds. Very nice 40 time for a guy that size, 4.53. Has 2 seasons of production, but it's really all about 2021. 115 tackles, 18.5 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. Dude made a home in the backfield and 2 forced fumbles. And the big boards, they're a little all over the place, but they're all top 100. As you can see, PFF, ESPN, they think he's a second-round guy, but everyone else thinks he's a third-round guy. I think he probably is a third-round guy. So Leo Chanel of Wisconsin, he's a hard hitter. He's fast, especially for his size. Excellent on the blitz. What he did at Wisconsin under Jim Leonhard, all about his ability to blitz up the gut. All about his ability to get to the quarterback. He's an elite playmaker. He's constantly making plays in the backfield, on quarterbacks, and running backs. Also high character. He's very strong. He's got a lot of muscle to him. This is a guy who, I feel like Chris Collinsworth right now, but this is a guy who gives you tremendous speed, size, and strength. It's not often you find all those things. He's amazing shooting the gaps, shooting those A gaps against the run and the pass. And he should be excellent on early downs. And because of all these things that I just said, he should be a great 3-4 fit. So even though he's not quite as good as Troy Anderson, even though he's obviously nowhere near as good as a Devin Lloyd, he might be better to bring in for this team. Because I think he'll fit in with this defense, especially if our defense is blitz heavy. So those are the things to like about Leo. The cons, there are some. His agility is not great. He's got good straight line speed, but he's not very good at changing direction or jab stepping and then going back the other way. If he did the 3-cone at the combine, I have a feeling it would not have been very good. His change of direction is slow. Needs to become a more cerebral player. I think that he'll probably pick that up with time, but right now he's kind of a just me see ball, me go get ball guy. He needs to become a little more mindful of things like play action, I think. He will need some coaching in order to improve his ability to play on the field in third down, particularly in coverage where he gives you very little. So there is some stuff to work on for Leo Chanel, but I'm very interested because I think he's going to be a good fit. So Leo Chanel, definitely somebody near the top of the list just because it makes a lot of sense for this team to get somebody like him. Okay, next up we have Jesse Lukita from Penn State. This is another bigger guy and a actually slower guy. Nittany Lion, 6'3", 253 pounds, 4.8940. Like I said, kind of slow. Had 2 productive seasons in college, 2020, 59 tackles, 2.5 for loss. 2021 breakout, 61 tackles, 8.5 for loss, a pick. The big boards are a little bit undecided. The Draft Network thinks he's a day 2 pick. Walter Football thinks he's an early day 3 pick, and ESPN and CBS think he's a late day 3 pick. So this could be a sleeper, but I kind of feel like TDN might have their finger on the pulse here. This is a guy who could easily slip to day 3, but I wouldn't be shocked if he did go in day 2. So what I can say about Lukita, he played defensive end at Penn State. He's long. He's got a lot of length to him. He's got that versatility that you want from a guy who can play on the line and play standing up. Good hands. He's somebody who uses his hands very well to shed the blockers, pushes through the blockers, always giving high effort. He's a high character guy, plays physically. He's in some ways maybe a little more of an old school linebacker compared to somebody like a JoJo, but very interesting skill set nonetheless. He does have a lot to learn on passing downs in terms of coverage, needs to hone some of his pass rushing skills so he can actually finish the job in the backfield. He generally just needs a lot of refinement, but Jesse Lukita is the final inside linebacker who I could see maybe finding a home on day 2 of the draft. I think it's a little unlikely, but I feel like there's something here. There's a lot of potential here. I just feel like he might end up creeping up in that area. And that's it for this video. Tomorrow we're going to do inside linebacker sleepers. There are some guys I like there as well. And again, you see day 3 inside linebackers play well as rookies fairly frequently. So if we do that, then I'm going to have no beef with that. So those are the 6 guys. I really like Troy Anderson. I am interested by JoJo Doman's potential in the right kind of defense. But Leo Chanel is probably the most realistic and safest target. So let me know what you guys think down below. We will talk about 6 more prospects tomorrow, but that's it for today. Peace out, go Hawks, and we're getting close to the end of the significant needs for the Seahawks.